Okay, last question, Rabbi.
Sure.
This is from Stephanie on Facebook. Is it wrong for Jews and Noahides to celebrate, say, like New Year's, January 1st is a New Year's, or other non-Israeli or non-Israel type holy days? Because, it says, do not add to or take away. And within the commandments of the Torah shows you where all the holy days are. Do not celebrate, do not follow after other nations. And so, if January 1st is a holiday from another nation, can they celebrate it, or is there something that needs to be explained
Okay,
there?
so okay, so there is a distinction here. New Year's Day, January 1st is probably a good idea to stay away from. There is a prohibition of loisechu b'chukas hagoyim, which means you'll find this in Leviticus chapter 20, verse 23, that one should not imitate the ways of the nations. And it's a very, the verse is, this is actually great. I love this. The loiselchu b'chukas hagoy asher ani mishal b'fnechem. Do not imitate the chukim, which means the laws or customs of the nations of the world. Now, this is a very important very interesting that most people overlook. So the term, remember early on, the beginning of the program, this is like bringing the program to a full circle.
Nice.
Well, I was asked, I think the first question is, there are different words to describe a law. There's some laws that make sense, right? And there's some laws, that means they make sense to our mind. Don't murder, honor your parents. And there are laws that we're not really sure why we can't wear wool and linen. It's not that there aren't libraries filled with observations made by great rabbis about this, but we're very careful about attaching reasons to laws that do not make apparent sense to us. The danger is that if we think the reason is not there, then maybe we can sidestep the law. So we're a little reluctant on that, but there is a considerable amount of literature. But here's the key point. So what did I tell you? The word chok means what kind of law? A law that doesn't make sense. It's based on, it's something that doesn't make reason sense. Now, if God gives a law that we don't understand its reason, we follow it.
Okay.
God says, don't eat pork, don't eat whatever bird. We don't eat it. We don't eat a vulture. We can speculate on why these species are, but we don't really know. We don't know, and we just want to serve God. And we don't have to know. It makes sense to us that the secret things belong to the Lord. That which has been revealed belongs to our children forever. Then we keep all the words of this law, this Torah. That's the last passage of Deuteronomy 29. Now, what about laws, the rules of the non-Jewish world? Well, it's like this. The Torah says the following: if the laws make sense, then of course, there are laws in the United States that are governed, that are laws that actually enforce the 7 Noachide laws. Make a lot of sense in the world. I mean, you can't drive at 150. You can't drive drunk. It's a crime in every state. That makes a lot of sense, and it is a sin to break that law in the United States. We don't do that now. It is not adding to the law, incidentally, to have a stricture or a fence around the law. As long as you don't say the fence is a law, as an example, you're not allowed to kindle a fire on the Sabbath day. So if you're not allowed to kindle a fire, the Torah says you should create fences, gedarim tasilcha, you should have fences protecting, guarding the law. If someone really loves the Torah and wants to protect it, they put a fence. It is a sin to say that the fence is the law. So we identify it as a rabbinic fence that protects the integrity of the law. That's not adding to law. Adding to law means saying that the fence is a law, that it's forbidden to touch matches on Shabbos from God. That's not true. You're not allowed to say that. You say, we have a tradition, a rabbinic injunction. That's a key point. What is forbidden is to add to law. It means to say that a custom is from God. You can't do that. Or a fence is from God. That's the prohibition. If a person feels, our sages tell us that if any person feels weak in any area, then they should create their own fence. Just as you would for your children. If you have electrical wiring, you put insulation around it, you put a fence around it, you put a sign around it. We do those things in the physical world. We certainly do them in the spiritual world. Let's get back to Leviticus 20, verse 23. The text said what is forbidden is, let's say the nations of the world have laws that don't make sense, meaning they're chukim. You can't follow them. The superstitions of the world. So therefore, if America celebrates July 4th as celebrating the independence of the United States and the great principles that America was built on, certainly celebrated, because that's not a superstition. It's not based on nonsense. It's really a real event that made a real change and produced a country that has great potential as a powerful, exquisite democracy. On the other hand, you have Halloween. Halloween is certainly prohibited. It certainly is of pagan origins. It's certainly, that is a custom of the nations, and which it has Druid origins, completely pagan. Run from it, not walk. Don't let your kids going out trick-or-treating.
Thanksgiving?
Thanksgiving is a real thing. That means Thanksgiving is celebrating, the pilgrims celebrating and giving thanks to God for the great blessings that were given to them, which Americans benefit from. And I hope Obama doesn't destroy in the short time he has left as president. I mean, just use your brains.
Sure.
God is not playing a trick with you. If you celebrate Christmas, you know you're celebrating something that's pagan. You know that God is not going, oh, I'm so happy that Bob and Harry and Christina have a Christmas tree. No, you are creating his image. It doesn't mean I'm going to go to hell. Stop with that. It's just obviously, just like if you're married, your wife doesn't want you having a Playboy at home or whatever they got. It doesn't belong in your house. Right. So therefore the prohibition is that means don't imitate the customs or the laws that are superstition, that don't have an explanation.
So January 1st
So January 1st, really a religious Jew would stay away from it generally. It's a time of drunkenness. It's a time probably that celebrates the circumcision of Jesus. But again, it's based on December 25th being his birthday, which everyone knows is nonsense. Right. That's a celebration of the winter solstice. So New Year's is an overlay on it. It's not, you won't find religious Jews celebrating. One of the nice things look, you'll find some that do, because they'll say, look, we can maybe separate it, from the, I'll never forget this. Maybe 35 years ago, 40 years ago, I had a friend of mine who had like some sort of New Year's party. He said, just come over, and I went over. And I told my father, I went over, and he really said to me, you should never do that. My father told me, I'll never forget it. He said, you shouldn't be a part of anything like that.
Oh, wow.
You have to use your own judgment there, but it doesn't raise up God. But Thanksgiving, Independence Day, of course, celebrate those. Those are wonderful.